Jason started out as production coordinator for the show Restaurant Impossible, which is done out of what was then Shooters, now Alchemy X.
Terrible name.
Yes, I agree.
Hey, why'd they do that?
Craig complained to me about it, but
None of them like it.
yeah, I know.
Jay, none of them like
No.
it, but they
Agreed
to it.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there. But they're over on Washington Square in the Curtis Building.
They're at the top floor, right?
Top
10th. We used to have 10th and 11th. Now we've condensed and taken over a little more 10th.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that your internship?
Yeah.
So was the inroad to.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So this is really a conversation about a couple of things. One is one is about making the transition from school to work and what the differences are, and then the other is about advancing your career. So 4 years ago, Jason started as a production coordinator, and recently, this fall, was named producer of Restaurant Impossible, which is now just wrapped its 7th season?
13th.
13th. Okay, I didn't realize.
We've done a crazy amount.
Yeah, so they've done 140 shows, and I could start off by saying, okay, what's the biggest difference between working in the world and being in school?
There's no second chances. I mean, when you're on, you're on. The pressure's much higher. Like, you can beg a professor to turn a paper in late. You can't do that in the industry. I mean, you got to be ready from day one, and it's not a forgiving industry by any means. I'd say that's the biggest difference. Is just you kind of get hit in the face when you leave school, and you have to be prepared, and you have to be on to perform at any given second. You're constantly being tested with stuff that you don't know what you're doing, and you just kind of figure it out. That's the biggest thing, is you can't turn stuff in late. There's no grace. People don't care if your mother died yesterday. If you have a job to do, you have to have it done. You have to figure out how to do it. I'd say that if I could say one thing, that's the biggest thing, is just understanding that 1,000,001 people want a job in the television or film industry. There's that old adage that says if everyone died tomorrow in the industry, the next day everybody would be replaced. So I think the biggest thing is just understanding that it's not a forgiving industry.
Can you describe for us your exact duties and the time that you put in?
For this particular job?
Yeah.
Or,
there are more than this?
I've done every job at this show. I started as an intern, and fall of 2012, I did the internship with the Art Institute. That was one of my two, and interned for 3 months as a course requirement, and then I stayed on unofficially for another 2 months, just to keep working there and get an end. Then I PA'd. I was a production assistant for a couple episodes, maybe a full season. And then after that, I went to graduate, and they literally a week before graduation, days before graduation, they offered me the production coordinator job. I actually missed, I think it was like a dress rehearsal or something for graduation to have that interview for that job. And then I coordinated for 3 seasons, which was about a year and a half, and became an associate producer. Then I went from associate producer to co-producer, and then co-producer to producer. So we kind of joke in the office, like I literally have done every job for that show, and went the right way and literally worked my way up position to position. Where you all know it's about who you know. I've seen people come in as associate producers and get fired immediately because they weren't prepared.
Can you take all that different strata, those different hats that you wore, and just define what the duties
Absolutely.
were?
So as an intern, I did paperwork. I got people coffee, got lunch orders, made a crap ton of copies, did data, input data in the spreadsheets for the production managers. That's pretty much, it's all clerical stuff, like, like a secretary would do. And then as a production assistant, I was a field production assistant, so I went out in the field, and as a PA, you do whatever you're asked to do. I literally shoveled shit for the show before. Actual shit I was shoveling for the show. I mean,
Who made it?
we were doing a renovation, and the septic system overflowed.
Oh God, it was human?
Yeah,
Oh.
and the septic system overflowed.
I thought maybe you were on a farm.
No, and there were several of us production assistants shoveling the shit out of the room and throwing it outside.
Oh.
I mean, you literally, a production assistant, there's no real defining criteria for it. You do anything and everything a producer asks you to do.
Basically, it's whatever the producer doesn't want to do.
Yeah, whatever they don't want to do, they ask you to do.
Or the plumber in this case.
Well, let Jason go through the different jobs,
Yeah.
then we'll get back to your question.
But yeah, I mean, the same thing, fetching coffee, we call it lockdown, where you're standing by a door because they're filming a scene on the other side, making sure no one comes in, to helping grip, carry stuff, C-stands, and occasionally a tripod if you don't get yelled at, literally anything and everything. And our shows,
Wait, yelled at for carrying a tripod?
well, at some productions they want, grip or AC to only touch the camera equipment. Or
So it's
something
almost
like
like separate unions within.
Our show's not like that
Yeah.
a whole lot, unless we get a director that comes from union. He's kind of like that, but for the most part, they don't want the PAs touching stuff because they don't want them breaking it.
Yeah.
As far as camera gear, but it's not as defined as union. I wouldn't say.
No, it's just an analogy.
Yeah. What else do we do? I mean, you literally do everything.
Associate producer.
For what?
That was
Well,
the
you
director.
go
No, this
through
is
the-
production assistant.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
production assistant. You do anything and everything that they ask you to do. And my train of thought was, we're also a restaurant show. So just to give you the premise of the show, if no one knows what the show is it's called Restaurant Impossible. And our host, he's a chef and restaurateur. He goes into failing restaurants, and in 2 days with $10,000, he fixes the restaurant. It's a whole new remodel, whole new training manual, food, menu, the whole thing. And we actually do that in 2 days, less than 2 days, like 36 hours.
Why do you say quote unquote?
It's a little more than $10,000 sometimes. $10,000 is in raw material. So the actual wood, the brick, the stuff we buy, that's where the $10,000 comes from. Not the expertise or the talent or the design, the labor, none of that is counted into that amount of money. But so that's the show. So the PAs do a lot of restaurant stuff. So they'll be washing dishes sometimes. They'll be buying dishes. They'll be picking up a liquor order for the restaurant. They'll be cleaning the bar. Like, you literally do anything and everything.
And this is all location.
All on location. So we travel across the country. We have a really aggressive shooting schedule now where we shoot about 3 episodes a month. So the typical shooting schedule would be Monday's your travel day, where you fly into the location. Tuesday we call it day 0, where we'll be at the hotel. We use an RV to set up our video village, where all of our director chair is at, and all of our monitors and our sound system. So we don't travel with it, so we get a local RV and we build that out. And we'll shoot a little bit of B-roll of the city, and then day 1 and day 2 would be Wednesday and Thursday where we do the show. So I'd say Wednesday morning we're ambushing or surprising the owners at 9 o'clock, and by 6 o'clock on Thursday we're opening the restaurant fully renovated.
So do you do a lot of the logistics to set up the travel and everything?
So moving to the next position, I went from production assistant to production coordinator. My job as the coordinator was I did all the travel logistics. So we have a crew from about 40 people that travel.
Oh,
So
geez.
I book all of their flights as a production coordinator. I book their rental cars. I said who goes in what rental car from what point A to point B. I get directions, the closest Home Depot, the closest Wendy's, like all of that kind of stuff. Seat selection for the plane. What's you want an aisle or window? Like you want a extended leg room? Like all of those travel amenities. I book the hotels, work the hotel contracts, make deals with them to get cheaper room rates, or our host likes baskets in his room with Snickers bars and random shit. Like we work out all that type of stuff as a coordinator.
It's like a rock concert.
Yeah, I mean, so the coordinator sits, it's an office job. So I went from office as an intern, field as a production assistant, and then went back into the office as a production coordinator.
And we're talking throughout the U.S., the whole U.S.
Yes, we do the whole U.S. The only places we haven't gone are
Hawaii?
Hawaii and Alaska.
Yeah. Okay.
Puerto Rico
And Puerto Rico. It's too expensive.
to go.
Yeah.
And was your production coordinator job over here, and so you didn't travel, or did you travel? With
I
the
didn't
show?
travel as a coordinator.
Right.
I've been on some shows where they do have the like Bar Rescue travels their production coordinator, but our production coordinator was strictly in office, and I actually chose that job instead of staying in the field I had an opportunity as a PA to be key PA, which is like almost like a junior associate producer, or just you're the go-to guy when something needs done and they don't have time to delegate. You can kind of do the projects with the rest of your production assistants. But instead of being a key PA, I decided to go into the office because I just had a baby. So I didn't want to travel as much and couldn't really. So that's why I love the field. I hate being in the office. So that's why I chose to do that. But I booked all the travel as the coordinator, and then as the associate producer, it's half office, half field, where you book everything ahead of time. So I would book the tents for us to set up in, the RV that we're going to build out, the catering. We need dumpsters for construction. We need porta potties. We need a generator to power all of the production and the lights for at nighttime. You would coordinate getting extra staff if the restaurant was understaffed. You do all of that in the office, putting out press releases to get the public involved for when we're there, because as you can imagine, renovating an entire restaurant in less than 36 hours, we use a lot of volunteers as free labor. Our construction team consists of six contractors and 2 designers. So a lot of the labor is done by volunteers inside, people who volunteer their time.
Now, if you're out on 3 gigs a month, you have like 10 days lead time to get all this together.
Right. So because of that, we have you're on one episode and off an episode. So we have 2 production teams.
Okay, all right.
So the production team consists of an associate producer, a producer, and an executive producer. So there's 2 of those teams, so we go every other episode. What's been unique in my position, because the last 2 seasons I've gone on every episode, so that's really sucked, which I'll get into why later, but typically you go on every other episode. So you pretty much have 2 episodes every 4 weeks, the way it kind of breaks down, maybe 5 weeks. So you spend about half your time in the field when you're in production, as a producer of any level. 2 months are in the field, 2 months are at home, pretty much.
Yeah, the magnitude of this project that we were describing, does shooters do anything else? Or is this the cash cow?
It is.
Okay.
Now they do a lot of political ads. They do a lot of political ads. They do a lot of commercials. They do a lot of other stuff.
So now they're really busy with that.
Right, but this is definitely the biggest show they have.
Yeah. I worked with those guys in the 80s when it was just Craig and Dave.
They're awesome.
Jay.
Thelma's talking about the owners of the company. There's 3 guys who started the company years ago, but they actually work in the field with us. It's a weird dynamic to have the owners of the company as your cameraman, because as a producer, that cameraman works for you. It's a little weird, but They're awesome because they keep going. They're in the field shooting or doing
They
audio.
started on, I think, I forget now, whether it's the Westinghouse show, that was the evening magazine.
Yeah, that's how they met, yeah.
That's how they met. It's two camera operators and a sound guy.
Yep.
And they left that gig, they formed their own team, left that gig, but took them as a client. That's how they were okay in the beginning.
Well, but they also, I don't want to talk too much about the company. I want to talk more about, so associate producer, and then,
So associate producer, you book all of that stuff, and then when you're in the field, you are whatever needs done, people come to you. So from every department. So we have the construction department, design department, the culinary department, and then the production department. And then in production, you have the camera department and then the production department. So anyone from any of those departments come to you when they need something done that's very difficult, and it's your job to figure it out and then delegate to your production assistants.
You're the point person for all that?
Point person for all of that.
Hey.
That position's the hardest position I've ever had for any job, and it's, to be honest, it's several different positions morphed into one. I've been an advocate of changing that position since the day I've had it. It's a little bit of location manager where, like I said, you book a lot of stuff ahead of time as far as catering and those types of logistics, and then you secure releases for different buildings we're going to be in, permits, building permit, filming permit, electrical permit. You handle that stuff, which is a location manager. And then when you're in the field, you're a little bit of a coordinator in the sense that all the stuff that the coordinator wrote for you, you're now saying, okay, at 9 o'clock we're all leaving, somewhat as an AD kind of with the schedule. So 9 o'clock we all need to leave, 11 o'clock we need to prepare for a service for the next scene. Okay, director, we're going to do a field trip, so we got to get all the cars loaded up over here, make sure all the gear's in the cars. So it's a couple different positions in one. As the AP, you also handle all of the money. So I'll go on set with $5,000 and a company credit card, and anything that needs bought, it has to come through me first.
Cash.
Cash.
5,000 cash.
Yeah, 5,000
In your pocket.
cash or a credit card.
And you don't have an assistant
We have production assistants, so
that,
I'll have
that
6.
also report to you?
Yeah, so I have
Okay.
6 production assistants that report to me. So anything that comes to my plate, I delegate and use those 6 people to do what I need done. And that's where, like I said, if someone's walking through the restaurant and a bag of nasty salmonella chicken falls on the floor in the middle of the restaurant, I go tell my PA, I need you to clean that up.
Does that happen?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I mean, all the time. If we go into the restaurant and they have a crazy amount of roaches and we need an exterminator, I'm on the phone that day trying to convince an exterminator to come out right now and do the work. There's a lot of those right then in the moment. You have to figure it out. You have to convince people to do shit that they normally wouldn't do.
well, because you also only have 36 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like this is
well aware.
This
Right.
is very.
It's very, very, very fast paced, very stressful. I mean, it's so stressful. I can't.
Have you killed anybody yet?
No.
Jason,
Well, I want to get to the next. I want to get to the last part of your current job,
Oh.
and then I'll take JJ's question and I'll take Sean's question.
So I'm going in detail a lot, so I apologize. But
No, they need that.
as a co-producer, I was kind of in between roles. They wanted to promote me to producer, but we couldn't find enough APs that could handle that job. So I kind of worked myself into a weird situation where I became really, really good at the AP. And people felt safe and we weren't having the problems we used to have. So when they were looking for people to replace me, it became difficult. And we also lost our other associate producer. So I became the sole associate producer, and that's where I started going on every show. And then we brought another guy in, but he needed trained. So to kind of pacify me, I got a co-producer title. I was doing my AP job, training an AP, but then also going in the field and doing more stuff as a producer as well. So it got really convoluted, and that was 2 seasons ago. And then from there, I got, in the fall, or really this winter, got promoted as a producer, which I do 100% of the story now. So my job completely went from logistics to creative, and my experience, the associate producer on other shows does a lot more creative than I was doing. I know a lot of shows where they are almost like script supervisor, where they just take notes for the producer from scene to scene, and then some of them where they do like minor character interviews. This is all for reality, of course, but minor character interviews or testimonials of how people like the food or something like that. But as a producer, what I'll do is we have a scouting producer who scouts the restaurants that are potential for us to go to, and they shoot like 8 to 12 hours of footage at this restaurant. They do interviews, they just shoot service. It's my job to take that footage, watch all of it, and then identify the main players for the show, identify what the main problems are, and then we have a board, and I literally, not storyboard in the sense of drawing, but in the sense of note cards, I build out what we want the show to look like.
Based on all that preliminary.
Based on all that
So
information.
it's basically taking, here's the beats in the story.
Yep.
On index cards or Post-it notes.
Yep.
Right, and putting them on a board and saying, okay, this is how the show lays out. This is what we got to go shoot. This is what we got to go do for these guys, because some of them, the menu sucks. Others,
Yep.
the restaurant is terrible, or they got to fire people, or
Exactly.
whatever the storyline's going to be.
So I'll build out the storyline, and then we'll all talk. We'll come up. I'll work with the EP to kind of iron out the details, and every once in a while, the associate producer will jump in and give some feedback, and then I'll take that and make a beat sheet. I'll make a schedule. I'll make a shot sheet or shot list for our director and camera department, and then we go out in the field. Now I made the beat sheet, but half of what I made on that beat sheet will not happen, or will go out of the window, because one of the big things that our executive producer, Mark Summers, who some of you might know from Double Dare or Unwrapped, he's an executive producer, and his big thing is he likes to keep things real. His motto is, we're making real reality, where he doesn't like to force things or make things up for the sake of television. So we also have a host who believes in that as well, and is on his whole other world where he does whatever he wants to do. So basically in the morning, he knows nothing about the show. He'll go into the show, he'll meet these people, he'll talk to them, and then he'll kind of come to us and be like, so this is what I think, where do you guys see the next thing going? And so I have a sheet where like I'll say, oh, the restaurant, like we just did one in, where were we, Columbus.
Ohio?
Yeah, Columbus, Ohio. She had this thing called infusions where she was putting different crap and liquor, and it was disgusting. She had like beef jerky and bourbon and called that an infusion, and like it was really weird. So like obviously I had a scene built where I was like, I knew I wanted him to talk about it, and I wanted him to see it. So I'll literally just say,
What's the host's name for those who haven't seen the show?
oh, it's the name of the restaurant?
No, the name of the host.
Oh, the host is Robert Irvine. He's a chef and restaurateur, big muscular English guy, carries a sledgehammer around, like that's what he's kind of known for. He's on the Food Network a lot. But I'll kind of whisper that in his ear, say, hey, make sure you check out these infusions, and then he'll let the scene play out however he wants it to, and then I'll say, listen, tomorrow we're going to show her how to make better ones. And that's kind of where, as a producer, we're not making anything up, but we're just kind of steering this train in the right direction, so that when we come home with all this footage, we actually have a television show that we can build from it. And I mean, there's a lot of arguments that are had where I think there's a problem that needs addressed and the host disagrees, or the executive disagrees, or we want the host to do something and talk about something, but he doesn't because he doesn't want to, or he feels that it's not as big of an issue. So it's a balance of just taking this running train and just steering it in the direction to where you have a television show.
Now, my question is, when you were in school, what did you want to do versus what you're doing? Because a lot of us have like ambitions. We want to do film, X, Y, and Z. Are you like, or were you just like anything that comes along, I'm gonna work and just get whatever job and keep moving up the ladder? Because
Which ties into, did you choose that internship, or did somebody just say, here, do this?
So with the internship, me and Maureen have a good relationship, but we used to go back and forth because I wanted to intern way before we were allowed to. So I took a lot of initiative in getting my own internships. And I had a good like 5 internships lined up, and she actually was the one that gave me the Restaurant Impossible one as a, she let me know about it and I submitted my resume. But I went on interviews for Fox 29, NBC 10, Spike in New York, CBS Sports in New York, and then Restaurant Impossible, which was in Philly. I got...
But, you know, as one of my students, to answer your question, JJ, sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
no
is
problem.
that yes, Jason wanted to be a writer-producer. I mean, I think that was the focus,
Yeah.
and we could talk a little bit about, you know, the kind of difficulty in this program of being a producer, right? Because there's not a specialization, right? You guys don't get the opportunity to decide that you're going to specialize in directing or camera or producing, and perhaps producing is the toughest one here.
Yeah, speaking specifically, going back to answering your question, I initially, growing up, or I wanted to go to film school to be a camera operator. And when I got into this program, immediately saw I was not good at operating a camera. And I wanted to go in the film, and seeing the technical side of it and kind of the mathematical side of it almost sometimes when it comes to lighting and apertures and distance from camera.
You're talking film.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I got really turned off from that and really enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed writing, but then, you know, through, I think, pretty much one of Goodman's classes, really liked writing and knew from there, like, okay, I could be a writer-producer. And one of the things I did in school, which I encourage all of you to do that 90% of students don't do, is seek out education outside of the classroom. So I'm that guy who's always reading books about the industry, always watching YouTube clips, always watching behind the scenes on every movie I've ever liked. That's how I wanted to be in the industry, was growing up watching Jackie Chan, and at the end of his movies, he always did his stunts behind the scenes, or Tom Cruise movies always had a lot of bonus features on the DVDs. So, but I learned that what my skill set was and what I enjoyed doing catered most to writing and producing. Which I'm a producer, but I'm still not a writer-producer for a scripted series, which is my ultimate goal. So yeah, I mean, I kind of changed a little bit through school to what I wanted to do, but very early on, I'm talking like 1 or 2 quarters, I knew that camera wasn't for me. And then from there, wanted to be a writer-producer.
Sean?
Jason, it sounds like you were on a fast track once you got the internship there. What prepared you to take on the real minute details of this, what you're doing now? What was the learning curve for you?
It was kind of very sink or swim. I mean, a lot of people would say that I'm lucky. Like I work with guys that are older than me that are production assistants. When I was a production assistant, 2 of those guys are still production assistants now. I did a show in Atlanta with production assistants that were in their 30s. So for me to be, I'm only 26, for me to be a producer on a network show, not that it's The Voice or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of people say I'm lucky, and I kind of look at, it's kind of preparation meets opportunity. I got a lot of opportunities and I was prepared at that time, and really, I mean, I can't really say what attributed to me being successful other than I always bust my ass, always bust my ass, always go the extra mile, and then don't procrastinate about stuff. So when I was a production assistant, if someone needed something done, I was running to do it. if we needed something picked up at the grocery store, I was speeding to the grocery store, getting out of the car and running to go pick it up, and then running back. And people kind of saw that work ethic as a production assistant and even as an intern. Like every day when I came an intern, at my job we can dress the way I'm dressing right now. This is how I dress every day. I love it. I hate suit and tie. I can't work like that every day. I get too hot. But every single day I wore a suit and tie to my internship. I was the only person in the whole building. Every single day I did that. Every single day someone needed something done, I stayed late to get it done. And it was just having that mindset that I want to move forward. The producing, the AP job, what was interesting about that was when I coordinated the AP, we had an opening for an associate producer and I didn't get it the first time. It came down to me and another person and I didn't get it. And they said because they didn't see me out in the field enough. So whenever we did a shoot that was within 8 hours of driving, I drove to that shoot and was a production assistant and worked with the AP to show, for free, I was not getting paid extra, to show that I could be in the field and that I wanted to be here. And the second time it came around, I was a shoo-in. We didn't even interview anybody else because of that. So I think always busting your ass is really important in the industry, and it'll go recognized even if no one says anything to you.
That being said, and also you mentioned the new baby, on the average, how many hours are you putting in per week?
I'm pretty lucky at shooters. I mean, and also having Summers be our boss, he kind of doesn't care as long as you get your stuff done.
Okay.
So there are days where I spend 12 hours in the office, but there's also days where, like yesterday, I was there for 6 hours and left.
Then you're salaried, right?
Yeah.
You're
So
not
we're
hourly,
yeah.
right.
As a producer, you're gonna be salary, and you're gonna get screwed by being salary.
On the long days.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
long days. But at the same time, if I want a day off tomorrow, it's not that big of a deal as long as I have all of my work done.
Right.
But that's important. The second you don't have something done, the first thing that's going to be said was you left at 4 o'clock on Monday. Why
Right.
isn't your shit in order? So I put in a lot of hours. Coordinating and associate producer killed the hours. And then in the field, you're working crazy amount of hours. I mean, you might get up at 6 to start work, and you might not get in till 10 at night.
Let me take some questions from the rest of the
Well,
students.
I have one more burning one. What are they
Mark.
shooting? What are they shooting with? We haven't talked about technical.
Oh, so we're still shooting on digital tape, which is
Oh, really?
really weird. They don't want to get rid. They have all of the infrastructure for it. We're shooting on
BBC Pro?
HPX 900s.
Okay.
Oh, an
In-
HPX 900s.
Yep.
In HD. On HD.
Yeah, HD tape.
So it's DVC Pro HD.
Yep.
Okay, we'll come back to it.
Lighting. What about lighting?
No.
Go,
Mark,
one more,
Mark, you're done.
But I
You're
teach
done.
lighting. I
No,
teach lighting.
yeah, it's okay.
You lighting.
You can talk to
No,
Jason
that's the last
afterwards.
one. Last one. Do
No,
lighting.
no,
Mark,
stop,
it's 12:45,
stop. Mark,
The very first thing you said, Jason, was that you don't get any second chances. Well, like, I guess a personal question to you is, has there ever been a time where, like, somehow in some way you just failed at something or fell flat on your face?
APing, it happens a lot. Like I said,
And like, what happens afterwards? Like, how can you make it up? Or like, is a good chance where they just say, here, there's a door, don't let it hit you on your way out? Or,
I fixed it before anyone found out.
okay.
Anytime I made a mistake, I didn't boo-hoo and make a scene out of it.
Right.
I fix it before, or if you have a relationship with your producing, like as you're a producing team. So I would go to my producer and be like, listen, this got fucked up really bad. This is what I'm doing to fix it, and it'll be done by 2 o'clock. I just want to let you know so that if it comes up, you're aware that I'm already on top of it. And that went a long way because hiding stuff, when it comes to the surface, you'll look like an idiot because people think you're making excuses and whatnot. I mean, I've been fortunate to not have, there was one incident as a associate producer which really got me into trouble, and it was we were in Oregon at a pizza shop, and the day we were there, they legalized marijuana. So everybody didn't show up to work that day. Everybody. So I had hired a bunch of staff, and this was a big restaurant. We had about, I had like 8 servers, and 2 showed up right before we opened. And all day I'm calling. I booked another company. Those guys didn't show up. Like, I did everything I possibly could, and we had 2 servers show up. And Robert, our host, who, if you've seen anything, he can be not a nice person. And the 2 of us went toe to toe in the middle of the restaurant. And what was important there was I was never disrespectful, never towards him, but I stood my ground as far as I did what I was supposed to do, and this is what happened, which nobody cares. I mean, at the end of the day, results is all that matters. But what was important for me, a lesson that I learned, was just I demanded respect in that situation where, yeah, he still cussed me out in front of everybody, and a lot of people could get embarrassed or want to fight him for it. But at the end of the day, he's the host of the show, and nobody cares if he yells at me or anybody else, and they'll fire me in a heartbeat if it means keeping him. So in that circumstance, I defended myself, but I took my lumps, and then it never happened again. So I think learning from your mistakes is a big thing. We have a gentleman who's on our production now who will never be hired by us again or anybody because he made the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. And he's no longer with us. That's the biggest thing. If you're on top of your stuff and you're a likable person and you've established yourself, you can fall once or twice, but again, that mistake can never be made again, and it never was made again by me. So I think that's the biggest thing, is if you do make a mistake and you are graced, don't make the same one.
But I'll come back to you, JJ. Anybody else have a question?
I do.
I actually have another one.
Okay,
But
and then
Go ahead.
Craig. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, okay. When you became like the production coordinator, like were you just given that job and then they said like basically figure it out, or like how did they, if they did prepare you, how did they prepare you for it?
So training rarely happens here. From my experience in any show, I haven't worked on a lot of shows, but maybe 5 different shows that were network shows in some capacity I've worked on, and you don't get trained on anything. I mean, like, the only reason that I was training people was because that associate producer job was so difficult that you can't really have someone jump in. But I mean, the training for me as a producer extended from me coming on 1 episode and following the producer around. I mean, that was the extent of my training, and that's why I say do a lot of work on your own. Like, I shot a sizzle and a pilot on my own. That kind of helped me learn the woes, the ups and downs of producing. I watch a lot of videos on producing and listen to producers. And then my own show, when I'm not working, I was listening in on interviews and seeing how the producers act. I was very...
You're very proactive.
Yeah, you have to be proactive, because the coordinator job specifically, when I coordinated, our last guy was supposed to train me. I came in one day and we had our Christmas wrap party. So it extended, the training was 2 hours of us talking, and then we had the Christmas party. And then after we were off for a week for Christmas and for New Year's, the January 2nd, I was doing that job. And it was a huge learning curve for me because I had to figure it all out on my own, but it's one of those things where you just do, because if you don't, eventually you'll get fired. But again, a lot of research and just preparation helped those moments.
Very well spoken, Jay. Listen, I tell students all the time that this is not a technology business. This is a people business. And I just wanted to hear your reaction on that. And the second tier of the question is, how long is it after a show is shot before it's on air?
To answer the first question, it's 100% a people business. Like I was saying before, there's people who got jobs that didn't deserve those jobs and had 0 experience because they knew somebody. And granted, if you don't have it to back up, you know, you'll get fired quickly. But there's also guys who their aunt or uncle is someone important and they don't carry 100% of their weight and they might stay on the production as well. Networking, I know everyone says networking. I got sick of networking when I was in school and hearing about it, but it's so important. Especially as a producer, because there's not, I mean, Staff Me Up is kind of growing as far as getting jobs. There's a couple corporate production jobs on LinkedIn, but like in a small market like Philadelphia, I can't get another producing job unless I know somebody. And anytime my show stopped where we thought it was going to be canceled or I needed to pick up a month or two of work, I only got that work because I shot an email to someone I met, or a friend of a friend was looking for a producer and we introduced ourselves via email, or I met them in person. Or I'm involved with the PGA that does a lot of stuff in New York, and I go up there and meet with people as well. So it is so important, networking. And if people like you, they will give you a chance. And if people like you, they will be more lenient when you do make mistakes. Like I said, the first time that associate producer job was available and I didn't get it, I was quiet. I was in the office. I didn't talk to anybody. I just kind of did my work and everyone appreciated it, but I wasn't going out to have drinks with people. I wasn't talking to them about TV shows or what the news was. I wasn't putting myself out there, and people didn't, besides a handful of people, no one knew I even wanted to be an associate producer. So I really learned that lesson and started putting myself out there and talking to people and letting my bosses know this is what I want.
Jim, you get somebody.
Okay.
How about the completion of the show? Yeah.
8 to
No,
10 weeks.
go ahead.
Okay, cool. Look, after all the work that you put into this company, do you see it now as a building block, or would you stay with them as long as you could, or is there something else you want to do as an individual with the experience that you're currently backing up?
It's definitely a building block. Being at Shooters has allowed me to grow in a very short amount of time. Like I was saying, there are producers who are younger than me as well, but being at that same company gave me the opportunity to become a producer. So now when I leave, I'm a producer. So if I wanted to, I could take a step down and do segment producing or associate producing on a bigger show, but like I'm never coordinating again. I'll never have to do that. I mean, you know, if you stay in Philly, you might have to be more flexible, but if I'm in a market like Atlanta, New York, or California, I'm a producer now. So it's been a huge stepping stone that I really appreciate. But for me personally, I want to be a writer-producer of scripted series. I like both drama and comedy, hour or half hour. So that's my ultimate goal. Right now, while I'm doing all these jobs, I write scripts on the side. I'm working on my second pilot now. I have my first one under review with some people, and then the second one I'm writing now, I have 2 EPs that have already signed on it that are willing to, they saw a couple of the first drafts and they're willing to promote it and put it out there. But I mean, that means nothing. Literally means nothing.
So the work that you do outside of your company, how do you get that to different organizations or different people that were to go ahead and help you?
So I shot a sizzle for a travel show when I was an associate producer. I started before I became, and then while I did it, and that was extremely difficult, and it was definitely a learning curve. But it's the same thing, connections. Some was just cold calls, but through people, you know. Oh, I met this producer in New York who worked at NBC. Hey, can you hook me up with, you know, your E-News affiliate? I think that I could pitch something to them. It literally was just meeting people, getting a business card, and keeping in contact with them. So every 3 months, just shoot an email. Hey, how's it going? How's your project? Are you have any openings, or do you have anything going that you think I'd be able to help you with, or let's go grab lunch and just kick it. And then I did a lot of cold calling. You can find almost anything on the internet. I mean, with enough I was finding emails and phone numbers for development executives. I have no idea how, but eventually I did. And with that sizzle, I was an associate producer for a month, and I never got in a meeting, but I was emailing and phone calling with a couple development executives for E, FYI, and Esquire. Now again, my show didn't go anywhere, but I got them to watch it and email me. But it was the same thing. It's kind of banging on as many doors. I mean, it took over a month just to get those 3 contacts to even talk to me.
Jay, when you shot that sizzle, that was for the first pilot, right?
That was no. The sizzle was I did on my own for. I had my own personal idea of a travel show.
Oh, that was the travel show. So
Yeah.
you had to go out and hire your own crew.
Yeah, I actually.
Your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I used a couple. I mean, I convinced people to do it for free with first right of refusal if it got picked up. Again, I had a couple executives at a couple companies in Philly who were willing to watch it. So I kind of went in with that, hey, I got these 3 companies that are going to watch my stuff. This is my idea. Would you be willing to be a part of it? It was a short shoot. It was a 2-day shoot, 8 hours both days. And it was like, if this gets picked up, you'll get first right of refusal as the audio technician or as a producer or whatever. And I'll also give you all copies to put on your reels. Half the crew was Art Institute people that I met while I was here. Adam Pedito, Wes,
Sure.
those guys worked on that and shot it for me. Allie, she was on it too.
Go Spangler?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So the 3 of them were
Confident crew.
all my camera department, and then
Yeah.
everyone else I kind of met on my own elsewhere.
I'll come back
I wish you had brought that.
The sizzle.
Yeah.
We could. It's online. We
Could
could
we
play
do
it
it?
if we want. It's not great. I mean, again, this was like 3 years ago,
Can you
but
find it?
it's something. It's on Vimeo. It's on YouTube too, actually. I think.
Well,
I
maybe
just
we'll
put it
maybe
up.
we'll put it on
Send
the
us
board.
the link and we'll.
Yeah,
we're gonna
or
show
send
it.
me the link and I'll show it. So, any questions on this side of the room? Are you guys just like?
I mean,
quiet?
ask me. I'm extremely honest. So ask me. It could be about life. It could be about
Lighting.
industry.
Could be about lighting.
It could be about. It could be about the Art Institute. Could
Yeah.
Be,
How were your grades when you were going to school here?
I graduated with honors. I had a 3.7 or 3.6, I think. Whatever the lowest.
probably
for
would have had a
honors was.
4.0 when he was in my classes.
So Jay, I've got a question for you. So how many lies did all the instructors tell you, or some of it based on truth, based on getting out in the industry?
I think you guys are pretty honest with how hard it's going to be getting out there. I think, the thing with the Art Institute is they accept anybody. So, which is a good thing in the sense that no matter how you did in high school, you have an opportunity to be in a creative industry. So that's always good. But, the classes, they're so uneven sometimes with people who are serious and not serious, which I'm sure you guys know. If you're not 100% dedicated, you will not make it in the television
Amen.
or film industry.
Say that again.
Jason, there's a lot of colleges like that too. There's half of the students, no matter what program, could be biology or like that.
Yeah.
But you've got it, the people who want it, like you said the other day, there's the people that really want it and they pursue it and they do all the things it takes.
I mean, literally, my last 6 months of being in school, I did 2 internships. I had a brand new baby, and I was a full-time student. So there were days where I slept 4 hours a day, barely. It was rough, but again, I'm successful in some degree now, and that's because I was willing to do whatever. Thank you.
I had a question. Are you looking for now or even down the line? Are you looking for music production? Because I'm actually an audio major. I'm in here because I was just interested, and intrigued. But I'm developing my own sound, and that's really what I want to do in the field. In the music field, I want to be a producer like Metro Boomin, Mike Lowe made it. An artist too, so you need some music.
Like boom, you want to be a boom operator, or you want to mix in the field?
Nah. Metro Boomin, do you listen to it?
Oh, I see what you're. Okay, gotcha.
To make music.
Gotcha. I don't do anything with music really. I mean, as far as there's a lot of legal issues when it comes to putting music on air. So we pretty much have a database of made-up tracks that we use in the editing room that are already pre-released and pre-bought. But I mean, if you want to be, I mean, you're gonna probably start out. What do you said you want to be in the field?
Yeah, like I already have some in the field connections outside of school. You know, I'm just really like I go here to give me structure behind it all.
I mean, take advantage of it. Get in the field as much as possible, but make sure you know your shit before you go out there.
I'll come back to you, Jay.
Jason, aside from the internships and everything like that, like while you were in school, and I guess maybe not even including like the homeworks that you got, but like, did you do any projects on the side? Like obviously, did you take out like as much equipment as possible from the cage and like try to go out and do your own thing? And like, what did you do? What did you try to do in that time?
The best thing about the Art Institute to me in the program is the fact that from day one you can check out equipment.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the other schools in Philly, you have to, I think Drexel, you can't take stuff out until you're like a junior or senior. So it was really, take it out as much as you can. I mean, there was so many times I was walking down freaking Chestnut with a cart of lights and C-stands and cameras and stuff like that. So I did do some stuff on the side. Again, it was hard for me because I'm not a camera operator, so the stuff I did kind of sucked, to be honest. But I was always going to conferences and hearing people speak. You know, anytime someone came and did a speech at like, the Kimmel Center, like Kevin Bacon every year would come down. I'd always go see him speak about the industry. I would always go to the film festival and listen to people. I heard Darren Aronofsky, when he did Black Swan, was here and talked. The one Japanese director that I can't think of talked, but I always did that kind of stuff. Anytime they had something here, I went. The guy who did the Steadicam, we brought in
Garrett Brown.
The director from Winter's Bone was here.
Deborah Grant.
So anytime we did that stuff, that's what I kind of did.
I guess I'm just more asking about those individuals that don't have those connections outside of school, where like an individual who's coming in here and it's like, you know, like you have no connection, you don't know anybody, and you're kind of relying on what's going on in here, and obviously, you know, through your connections through here, I guess you're kind of relying on that, and then, you know.
That was, for me, only connections, before I came here, I worked in Atlanta for maybe 9 months as a production assistant. So I had a bunch of connections in Atlanta, which some of them were in Los Angeles, but here I had zero. So again, I was the type of student who I didn't talk to many kids, had a lot of other life shit going on. So I was very focused in on my grades, but not socializing, which ultimately hurt me. So I would encourage you to make friends and shoot stuff outside of school for whatever reason. It doesn't have to get a million hits on YouTube. Just shoot it so you practice and get better. And then as you guys all grow, when you leave, you can hire each other and you can work with each other. The 3 people I named that were my camera ops on that sizzle, I only knew them because we did projects together in school, and the 3 of them worked at another company where they all hired each other. Once one of them left, they hired the other one to go into that department, and so on and so forth. So again, making as many connections with the people who are in your classes. You know, if one guy's good at audio, get him, then get the camera guy, and you guys make videos.
JJ?
Now,
And then Sean.
for me, like, my plan is really to start my own company, and I was conflicted with some of my teachers because I have a teacher that's talking about swinging the hammer. He can get me jobs swinging the hammer. How many people have you seen come and really be able to maybe get that type of thing started when they start their own television station, or, you know, really advance higher up, maybe as a director of films or something? Have you seen people do that, transition, you know, to that?
I think that's probably the most difficult thing to do, is to come out and start your own company. You'll be shooting a lot of weddings. I mean, a lot of weddings. I know friends who have their own companies, but they work and they operate out of their company on the weekend. One of our producers, he does the same thing. He works. There's nothing wrong with shooting weddings. You can make a hell of a lot of money shooting weddings. The brides are crazy. I don't enjoy shooting weddings because people's expectations are always too high, in my opinion, and I suck as a camera op. So for me, I didn't do good with weddings. But I have a friend who makes, I mean, he'll make $5,000 to $10,000 shooting a wedding, like these high-end weddings with drones and stuff like that. As far as starting your own company, I kind of did it myself when I shot the pilot. I had to make a company name and go through that process, and have a production company to go under when I pitched stuff. It was difficult, and I'm not saying don't do it, but it is difficult. Maybe start in the industry and work your way up, and then from there you can leave and start your own company. There's a lot of production companies out there where it was a Sony executive who worked for 10 years and then left with a huge book of contacts and then went and started his own company.
So JJ, so part of the thing is that if you want to, if that's what your ultimate goal is, it really helps to go work for somebody else because you don't have to make payroll, right? The problem is that when you have to make payroll, because I had to make payroll for 25 years, is that you get paid last, right? Everybody else gets paid first, and you got to go solicit the work. And if you have no contacts in the industry, then you're starting at ground zero. You have to prove yourself. Whereas if you're working for somebody, and like so, Jason, in 4 years or 3 years, or maybe next week, depending on what happens with the show, could go out and start something, right? Because he has a reputation, he's got credits, and he could decide to do that. Now, I don't know that that's what he wants to do at this moment, right? Because he's got 2 kids, he's got one and soon to be another child on the way, momentarily. We're making sure that you don't have to leave today, seriously. But again, it's about building a network of people, both on the production side, on the technical side, and on the side where you can gain access to the gatekeepers, because there's still gatekeepers in every industry. So, the guy who was at Sony, he's got a Rolodex where he can call up, the head of CBS and say, hey, listen, I got an idea. Okay, because they know that person, they'll take that call. You, forget it. They don't know you from Adam.
And then
They're
the
never
funny-
going to call.
The funny thing is the guy from Sony knows the guy from, and that's because they went to school together. And that's the point about what you were talking about. You guys know people in the industry, they're sitting next to you.
Right.
And you have to accept that and treat each other with respect and remember that, because afterwards, I'm still working with people that I met sitting next to me at Temple. And
Yeah.
they're lifelong people, and they move up, and we all moved up in the industry, and that's how it's like. And so, it makes sense. What he's saying makes sense, but you don't think you know anybody? You do. And you know their work even better. You sit in class and look at it. That's,
Right. Well,
as a
it's also, look, you learn very quickly, as you've all learned, I'm sure, in group projects, who's going to carry weight and who isn't, right? And the people who can't or aren't interested are not going to be around. Because in my world, for a long time, there's only 2 kinds of people. There's 110 percenters, you're looking at one, and there's everybody else. And it's so, because there's plenty of PAs, I'm sure, who, oh yeah, all I have to do is go pick up stuff, and I'll come back in an hour and a half with whatever it is, and yeah, the job got done, but it didn't get done in the 30 minutes that someone needed it to be done, or, and it's the difference between putting yourself out and staying and making sure that the thing is done before you leave. So the rule on all the shoots that I went on for years and years and years was, it was my shoot, guess who was there first, and guess who was there last? It was me. And then there was usually, if I wasn't directing or I wasn't shooting, it was either me and the DP or me and the director if I were shooting. And that's it, and it's beginning and end. It's like, because at the end of the day, it's like when you go back into post, if you don't have the stuff, it's really expensive to go redo it. And so you got to get it done. And as Jason said, there's no second chances, right? You're only as good as what you did last week. Because nobody remembers what you did 10 years ago. It's like, you could, it just doesn't exist. Short attention span theater, right? I used to work in advertising. They're even worse. They can't remember from from 1 minute to the next what the hell's going on. But again, you know, you have to just really want to do this, because if you don't, go be a plumber, man. They make a ton of money, and it's way easier conditions. And you know, when the person says, "Oh yeah, I can get there next week," you know, you got nowhere to go, right? In our business, there's 100 people want Jason's job, and every job that's on that crew. So it's easy to find, you know, replacements. Sean,
You
did you have a question?
said something that was really important, and I hope everybody in the room heard it. I exit interviewed a DFEP student who said to me that they don't read. I asked the student, "Who's your favorite cinematographer? Or who's your favorite director or whatever?" And the answer was, "I really don't know." And I said, "Well, what kind of books have you read in addition to the classes to supplement your knowledge?" "Well, I really don't read." And they said it with a straight face, and I was outdone. So you said that you do a lot of supplemental learning in addition to what you learn here as
Yeah.
a student.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate just a little bit more on that? And then also the other part of that statement / question is, as from your perspective working in TV now, what do you think would be helpful curriculum-wise here to prepare students if they want to go into TV broadcasting?
First question, I read a lot of books on script writing. I probably have not a big library by any means, but maybe 8 to 10 books on script writing, from actual technique to as far as like structure and formatting, all the way down to, you know, plot points and character development. I also do the same for producing. Guy Devin Franklin has a really good book out on producing. He's a Sony executive. He did The Karate Kid and The Wedding Planner, different movies like that. But he, I like a lot of realistic, kind of biographical / industry books, because they tell it like it is. And his book, and I can't think of the other guy, but I read a lot of stuff like that. I mean, even magazine articles, you know, Entertainment Weekly and the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, like even reading those types of stuff, they have interviews with people that talk about it. The one I'm watching now on YouTube, which is awesome, the Hollywood Reporter they do roundtables where they take 8 people who are industry leaders and they sit down. And right now, like I said, my ultimate goal is to be a showrunner, writer, producer, and there's one where they had the showrunners from How to Get Away with Murder and The Affair and The Leftovers and The Good Wife, like all these shows that get 20 million people to watch, and they just talk, and they talk about the problems they go through, and what kind of like we're doing right now, and I watch all that stuff and absorb it, so that when I'm in those situations, I kind of have a leg up on what to expect, or it's just progressing you. I watch TV and I analyze how I would do something better. I don't really like reality TV that much, but I'll watch it and I'll say they should have did this, or that was a good job, or I would have asked this question for this interview. I mean, just constantly being in the industry every single day is important, even if it's conversation starters for other people in the industry. And then, you know, we'll talk about The Walking Dead at work with someone across the hall that's an editor, and then later he'll send me a job opportunity down the road. But as stupid as it sounds, reading's important. Like I said, I subscribe to a lot of newsletters that just talk about the industry or ratings or development deals, and that stuff's important. And reading books and they're not textbooks, they're not these giant textbooks on the industry. It's literally, you know, 200 pages of someone's life story about how or career path. That stuff's important to me, and I think has benefited. As far as the curriculum here, I don't know what it's been like since I've been gone, but I do think having, which should probably, I don't know if it's possible, but having a kind of a specialized plan towards what you want to do, maybe for like your last 4 quarters would be, I think, helpful. That way, if you don't want to be a cameraman, you know, you understand, you know, you should still take camera classes because you need to know what your director needs for you as a producer or as a writer. You know, but I think it would be helpful to kind of, like, for me, for producing was really difficult because there was, outside of talking to the professors individually, one-on-one after class, and maybe reading on my own, there wasn't a whole lot of classes for producing.
Did you do a senior project?
I did do a senior project. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, I remember.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
May I? This is going to be a delicately asked question, and I think the adults in the room can appreciate. Sometimes your job takes you away from your family,
Oh yeah.
and our industry seems to have the same percentage of divorce rate than maybe every other industry, but I don't know how long you're going to go with your narrative today, and I know it's already a little after 1, so
I'm okay as long as you guys are.
I want to do at some point, and if you want to do it now, just to talk of the issue of how difficult it is to have roots, own real estate, have a home, have a family that you want to lean on and want them to see you, and what it means to be dedicated to this kind of industry. Because many of us don't do what you do, and we don't have the fame and fortune that becomes of somebody that dedicates himself like you have, because we don't want to rip ourselves away from what we already enjoy, right? So can we talk of kind of sacrifices you need to make, or maybe your family needs to make to have you have that opportunity?
A lot of sacrifices. I mean, I'm 26, I'm married, and I have one kid already and another on the way. And like I said, there's some times where I'm travel 3 weeks out of the month. Now I'm home on the weekends, but I still go on 15 to 18 days out of 30 per month. It's a huge sacrifice. I mean, when I was in the last couple months of school, my son was born. And my son, had an apartment in Philly, and because of complications of pregnancy, my wife lived in Harrisburg, just about an hour and a half to 2 hours away with her mother, while I was interning, going to school, and working all at the same time. So the first 2 months of my son's life, I saw him on the weekends, because that's the choices that we made. What's important for me, what's the benefit I have, is I have a wife who's extremely supportive. But when we were boyfriend and girlfriend, I told her straight up when we were getting close to graduating, I said, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to give 100% to it, and I will be with you, but you just have to understand that if we're going to be together, that there's going to be times where I'm not home because I'm working. And obviously I prioritize my family first, but she's super understanding. Like, I couldn't ask for more from her support. And she only gets happier because now she can buy shoes and freaking coats and shit because I'm working and I'm making good money. So it's a sacrifice though. I mean, and when you start watching stuff about people who are super successful that are doing shows, HBO shows and stuff, or NBC or Fox, they say the work-life balance is always uneven. When they're in season, they're in the office till 2 o'clock in the morning in the writer's room, but then they'll take 2 months off and go on vacation somewhere and just spend time with their family. I don't think there is a balance. Now, I've been here and heard people, one of the guys who was here to talk, I think he was a director or something, he said you can't have a marriage and be in this industry, and he was on his 3rd marriage. I've never been a guy that will let people tell me stuff I can't do. So right now it's working. But again, it's all about, my wife's supportive, and she totally gets it. But she had to sacrifice her career. She went to the Art Institute of Philly, and she was a fashion major, and she was doing internships at 17 magazine and interviewing with Vogue, and working in New York, and was successful. More successful than I was when we met. When we met, she was more successful than me. And we both tried to work for a period of time, and it didn't work. And at that, I started making more money, and she was willing to sacrifice her career for a while so that I could do mine. But it's give and take. I mean, eventually I'll have to slow down so she can pick back up where she left off, and I'm willing to do that.
That's love, man.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't have that luxury at all.
You're lucky.
Well, and it's also difficult to sustain over time, which is
Oh,
why
absolutely.
that director said that, right? You know, so it is hard, I think, to have a balance, especially given the way the industry has gone. It used to be that if you worked in film and making feature films, you know, they worked 8-hour days. Now they work 16-hour days. And that doesn't, you know, help in terms of being able to have a balance between family and work, and especially because now, you know, they're going to the cheapest place possible to go shoot. So, you know, spending 4 months in Romania doesn't do an awful lot for your marriage. Again, you have to kind of decide what your priorities are, because there's a lot of different aspects to the business. So maybe that's not right for you at the moment. If you have, you know, committed relationship and kids, then you can't be the feature film gypsy, right? That's really not gonna work for you, especially because there's an awful lot of temptations on the road.
Oh yeah.
You know, all kinds of the positives and negatives, right, between relationships and drugs and alcohol and everything else. And, you know, it can be really lonely, especially if you have relationships somewhere else.
It's not easy. Like I was saying, how supportive she is. I mean, we fight about me being on the road. We fought last week because last week I was on the road, and like I said, she's about to give birth any day, and I'm in Pittsburgh, and she's like, "You need to get off that shoot," and I'm like, "I can't. Like I can't tell them I'm not going on a shoot. I can't do that." So I mean, it is hard, and I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna get a divorce, but I mean,
Not on camera, at least. Right?
any day could be different. Any day, and especially being on the road, there is a lot of temptation. People in this industry drink a lot, a hell of a lot, and they do a lot of drugs, and they have affairs. And so it's important to just, like Goodman said, know your priorities and know what you want to do. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't take the key PA job because those PAs are on the road constantly. So when the producers fly back to be in the office, they're still on location or driving our truck full of gear to the next place. So if we're shooting in Boston and our next shoot's in Texas, which would be bad planning for us, but has happened, they have to drive across country. So I knew I wouldn't take that job because I'm on the road with a bunch of other 24, 22-year-olds. All we're gonna do is get drunk and try to talk to girls. Like I knew that wasn't right for me because I had a family, so I took a coordinating job instead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, part of keeping yourself sane and safe and having a healthy balance is finding a way to center yourself and knowing who the hell you are and what it is that you want. So it's perfectly fine when you're in your 20s, you know, to be out there having a good time and, you know, chatting up girls, because that's, you know, that's what you're doing if you're a guy or if you're a girl. It doesn't matter, right? Have a good time. You're on the road, you know, it's a moving city, right, with changing players. The problem is, of course, if you got a committed relationship back at home, that don't work so well. But you have to know what it is that you want and that what you're willing to put up with. And if you can do that and figure it out, you know, you can find a place in the business. I think what doesn't change is the fact that you have to be committed. You have to be willing to give 100%. I like to say it's 110% because, you know, you have to prove to people that this is what you want to do and that you're eager to do this. Because if you're not, you're going to be disappointed. Because you're not going to advance. You're going to be the guy who's still 5 years down the road, the PA, because you're just kind of lackadaisical. And, you know, and it may be okay, you know, because there are people who make a rational living in the business who don't advance. And, you know, and if you don't mind doing the same thing over and over again, then it's perfectly fine. But if you have your goals set high, then you have to be, I think, willing to put out at a very high level for as long as you possibly can. And that means forever. I mean, I think, you know, my current hero is the guy who died last spring. He was 106. He made more movies, more feature films after he was 85 than he did before, right? Because I gotta have hope too, right? Not that I'm 85, but again, you know, it's like next week I have to do better than I did last week. I have to know more. I have to learn more. I have to be interested in learning more in order to stay in this business, because there are, you know, behind me there's 1,000 people. Behind Jason, you know, maybe there's only 200 people looking for that job. And, you know, the longer you're in the business and the more experience you have, the more people are determined to take your spot. Just the way it is. So the only way to keep pace is to decide this is what you want to do and that you're still interested. And the thing that I continually say to my students is, I'm sure some of you have heard me, some of them perhaps not yet because you haven't got that class, is that look, the whole reason for being in this business is because you want to solve problems, whatever the problem is, whether it's a visual problem, shooting something, or it's a producing problem, but you got to get excited about doing that, figuring a way out of the box, because you're always in the goddamn box.
Yeah.
That never changes, whatever the box is, right? So it could be an audio box, it could be a camera box, it could be an editing box, it could be a producing, directing, writing box. There's always a box. You got to fight your way out of that and find a solution. And guess what? Next week is going to be a different problem because you figured out how to solve that one, but God darn it, there's a new one. There's a new wrinkle on the problem that you're going to have to figure out, which is why I still am doing this. Otherwise, I would have forgotten it long ago. Any other questions?
In your experience, does it matter where you get your degree from or what kind of degree it is?
No.
Not at all.
I mean, you know, certain schools obviously hold more weight. Like if you went to Tisch at NYU, you probably grabbed a hell of a lot more connections there than some other schools. But I mean, I'll honestly say if I went to Temple or Drexel, I don't think I'd be any further along as far as it being on my resume. Like when I went in, they asked me about school for 10 seconds and then we never mentioned school again. I mean, it's important to have a degree, absolutely. And obviously you don't want to go to a trash school, but like I think it's important to have the degree because it shows that you started something and you finished it. It shows that you have the basic knowledge for the industry. It shows a form of commitment that you were at the same place fighting to get a good education for 4 years or 2 years or 3 years. So I think a degree is important because for our internship, you know, you had to be in school. I think it's legally now because of what happened in California, you have to be in school to get an internship. But back then, not that it was long ago, but you didn't technically have to. And, you know, when I interviewed for that job or other jobs around that time, they wanted to see that I had a degree in this related field. But like, you know, if you're worried about having an Art Institute degree versus NYU, I don't, you know, like I said, I don't think it's not worth the $200,000 debt that you could incur going to NYU.
Yeah, what I would say is take the difference in the money and go make something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like, you know, you can always make an argument that you don't need to go to film school in order to be in the film business. But the reality is that the value of going to film school is that you build relationships with the people that are sitting in this room that then become your network. And it becomes difficult. It's more difficult now than when I started in the business. When I started in the business, there were 3 film schools in the country. Now there's like, I don't know, 300. So the people who had a network were a little leg up, right? But you could still break in to the network without that. I think today it's a lot more difficult because you all are in fact building networks of people, right? So you know, look around the room, you know who you'd like to work with, you know what they're capable of, you've kind of seen their work over your Art Institute career, and you get out, and what I continually tell people is, you know, the person is sitting next to you, the person that you formed a relationship with, every one of you is different, right? Wants different things. So what's on you as part of a network is that when you uncover something, an opportunity, if it's not right for you, then you need to give the person who you think might be right for. So that when they uncover something, they can give it to you, right? Because you all are unique, right? You all have unique skills, and you all have different desires, right? So some people want to stay in Philadelphia, they're never moving, they're never leaving, they're not going anywhere. And there are other people who the you know, day after they get the diploma are leaving for some other place. And again, you know, I don't know who you are and what you want at this moment, and it'll change, but you're building a network, and you need to connect with that and try and do your best so that people are impressed with at least your work ethic, right? Because at the end of the day, as Woody Allen said, you know, 80% of everything is showing up on time and being there. You know, the rest is, okay, can I do the job, impress the hell out of people? Can I, you know, figure out how to get myself to the next step? Because I think, you know, Jason and I talked about this. There's no roadmap, right? You know, it's like, because what Jason wants to do is not what he's doing at the moment.
Right.
But, you know, figuring a way from where you are to the next place, or the intermediate place, can be really, really hard, because there isn't a roadmap. You know, there isn't somebody can say, oh, listen, Jason, next thing you got to go do is do X.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. It's like you got to go do something and then hope that when you encounter an opportunity or encounter someone who might be able to open a door for you, that you're ready for them to open that door for you, and that you have something worth contributing that will allow that door to open for you.
I have a question, Jason. Would you say the biggest moments in your career path thus far were spontaneous, or you saw them coming?
I was always preparing for them.
Oh yeah.
So I always, like when I went on my interview to be a production coordinator, Mark, my boss, asked me, he said, what do you want to do here? I said, I want to be a producer. So ever since then, and even before that, I worked towards being a producer. So obviously opportunities happen that, again, the whole lucky thing, opportunity meets preparation. So, you know, like becoming a producer, I didn't think it was going to happen because there was no openings. So I associate produced for 5 seasons, and they were long, grueling seasons. And then I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and then they were like, you know what? We don't have openings, but we'll let you produce 1 episode this upcoming season. Then I took the extra time, and I was going on the shoots to train the other associate producers, and then someone gets a job that their dream job, and now there's an opening. And I was already producing 1 episode, so now it was easy for them to be like, well, guess what? You got 4 more or 5 more episodes, and now I'm a full-blown producer, where 6 months ago I didn't think it would happen. Not for this show.
Well, my question is like how you said you're not really great at camera operation, and I feel I'm better than the creative side of things. Like we're coming up with concepts and stuff. So what would your advice be to somebody like me? I mean, you know, just from your point of view.
I mean, do you like writing?
Somewhat. I mean, I took a script writing with Mr. Goodman, but you know, I like it. But I also like doing like the from producing and directing. That's really what I love to do when you're designing the films and the productions and doing all that kind of
He's
stuff.
very organized.
It's a producer. From what it sounds like, you're a producer. because directing, you gotta know your camera stuff in order to tell. I mean, I got directors who sit there and they'll be like, turn your focus wheel left. Like they just know like exactly where things need to be done. They have the camera in their head and they're behind the screen. But it sounds like you want to be a producer. I mean, go to everything in this area, meet contacts, because it's still important to get an education on the other things. That's why I said maybe, when you're close to your senior quarters, specializing. But as a producer, I have to know how long it's going to take them to light a scene, because I have to build the schedule. So if I have a half an hour to shoot a scene, those guys are going to be pissed at me because I'm going to be on top of them about lighting the scene and they don't have enough time. For you specifically, what you can do as producing is watch a lot of stuff, understand every department, so that you can, basically what you could do is get together a camera guy, an audio guy, a lighting guy, and then produce something. Find a scriptwriter who wrote a good script, and then you guys all go out and you're the organizer, the backbone that coordinates everything and over top of the whole concept. So I worked with people at the Art Institute to do stuff. I worked with people at Temple, at Drexel, at Philly U. Like, I made contacts outside of here in the classroom and outside, and you just work with people and make stuff. And you have a good time. Like, you guys take a weekend and make something, just whatever.
So JJ, I want to say every quarter, but it's not really every quarter anymore. It's like every other quarter. There's a senior project class that's in production, right, or in pre-production, that needs a producer, because there are lots of people, who could perhaps be, you have to take one role. So you could be the DP, you could be the director, you could be the producer. There's no reason why you can't go produce someone else's senior thesis project. Right? Absolutely no reason. And in doing so, you get producing experience. And if it turns out well, as some of the films have, great. Then you have something for your reel. And you can walk into Jason's office and say, listen, I could work for you as a production coordinator. Here's the 5 student films that I've been a producer on. Right? I understand what it is. And he'll probably laugh once he looks at the stuff, but it's okay, because he knows that it's like, okay, so you've been through the headaches of trying to manage people and resources when you don't have it. Right? Because they have resources. It's like, there's a budget, there's a real budget, there's money, and sometimes, they go over budget because they have to, because they got 36 hours to make this happen. And it gets done. It has to get done somehow. When you're a student, you don't have that, right? It's like you got to work an extra weekend, you got to drag more people in, things fall apart. So it's a great laboratory to learn how to motivate people and how to get things done when you don't have any money, right? Because when you have money, it's a lot easier. It's like everybody that works for Jason, from anyone on that crew, knows that they could be fired next day because they didn't do their job. And none of them want to be fired, right? Because it's a good gig for the most part, except for maybe shoveling the sewage wasn't such a good gig. But being there is, right? Because it's a situation in which, you're again, only as good as what you did yesterday, right?
And I just want to make a point of saying, whenever I listen to a lot of people speak about the industry and stuff they do, even people who are at the top of their game, like, I really encourage you to check out the Hollywood Reporter and look at the different roundtables they have. They have script writing, directing, producing, show running, acting. But on there, they always talk about how difficult it is and how stressed they are constantly. And it's very negative. And this sometimes to some people can seem negative from what I was saying today. It's just to weed out people who aren't serious and to just give you a full understanding of how committed you have to be. But do understand that I love my job. I love every second of my job. I have a good time. we work hard, but we play hard. So we'll be out, and at the end of every shoot, we all go out and we act stupid and we have a really good time, and you know, we go out and have fun. And what I'm doing, I enjoy doing. I'm being creative. I'm telling a story, and even if it's a reality TV show, it's still a story that somebody's gonna come home at the end of a hard day. They're gonna turn on TV and they can forget about their problems for an hour. Like, that's why I want to be in the industry, is to, you know, somebody's going to watch the stuff and they'll enjoy it. Even, you know, again, I want to do more scripted stuff, but still, it's a really fun job. It's a really fun industry. When I was a PA, I had an awesome time traveling the country and just messing around and having a good time. But it's because we worked hard, and, you know, you don't get paid the best all the time, but you do get compensated. And when you reach a certain level, you make good money. And so don't be discouraged, but understand you have to be willing to put the work in. You're not going to be, a lot of people that are overnight successes in the industry will really tell you they're a 10-year overnight success. They've been working at it for a long time, and then they caught a break. You know, if I had a script, you know, get greenlit in the next year, people would say I'm an overnight success. And to me, it's like, no, I've been in the industry since I was 18 years old as a production assistant. So I just want to say, the cubicle every day and punch in numbers in a computer. I get to go and travel the country, eat good food, and meet new people, and work in TV, which is cool. Like,
which offsets the shoveling.
Exactly, it offsets.
Sewage, the septic
Yeah.
system.
Last
Right?
week I was on the show, part of the show we've been breaking the fourth wall and showing behind the scenes of the show. And I did a hidden camera bit where I pretended I was an inspector and went in, and that was a surprise ambush. And it was cool having my grandma see me on TV. Like, you know, that's awesome. Or seeing my name at the end of the show as a producer is really cool. So keep at it if you really want to do it. I mean, it's a very rewarding industry, but understand it's not for the faint-hearted, and you do have to put in work.
I got one last thing.
One last
Okay.
question.
I just want to say that one thing I talk about even at open house when students are shopping around for schools is I give a quick lecture about learning how to make yourself indispensable. And that's what takes you to where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
So the training, scholastic training, technology training, we do our best as instructors, but this has to be something that you're hungry for, and you're going to be willing to put out at the highest level. You know, you're not competing with the C students. You're competing with the A's, right? So I thought that would be some food for thought.
Absolutely.
Well, Jason, you said you were an honest man, so kind of asking for your honesty on this one, but how much do you feel that this school prepared you for your job now, for you doing what you do now? Like, do you feel that this school was great in the fact that it prepared you, or do you feel that maybe you could have, you know, done it on your own, or maybe went somewhere else? What like your personal opinion?
Everyone I talk to that's been through film school, except for people I know from maybe Tisch and UCLA, we all say the same thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you get hit in the face when you leave, period. If you have no experience working in the industry, it's a completely different ball game. But no matter where you're at, it's more or less about what you do while you're in school and what you make of your education. So the instructors here don't suck, but let's say they all did. You're here. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to be successful in the industry. So like I said, you know, at the end of classes, if I didn't get something I needed in class, I talked to the professor. I mean, Goodman can say there were several times where I wrote crappy scripts in his class, and I went to him after class or in the freaking elevator. I'm sure he was annoyed with me sometimes, but I was asking him, why isn't this good? Like, so it's more or less about what you make of it, because at the end of the day, everyone can't afford to go to school, and everyone can't afford or get into the best schools. So I just encourage you that if you're not getting something from an instructor, or you don't feel like you're being prepared, ask them about it, and then go find it on your own as well. and get job experience while you're here. Try to get a PA job. I mean, Philly's kind of slow right now, but when I was in school, they were shooting a lot of features here, and there were a lot of people, a lot of PA positions open. So I did a parking PA where I literally was just on production and just, you know, stood at the parking garage and make sure no one got hit by a car and told people where to park. But that was an industry experience, and that was a credit that led to something else.
And what I will say, because I don't think, Jason, you ever actually annoyed me, but other than perhaps when I pointed something out to you and you ignored me, but what, from my perspective, I don't think, you know, there are no stupid questions. Ask the question, right? It's like a proactive student. It's like I have no, you know, badger me to death, you know, as long as I'm not doing something else, right? But ask all the questions. It's like, that's why I'm here. That's the only reason I'm here, right? Because, you know, we're not making a fortune teaching you guys. The reward is that, you know, that a student goes out and has a successful career, right? And is out there in the business doing this, because that's really the ultimate reward. And so ask all the questions you want to ask. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer, right? You got to go ask somebody else, because it's not my experience, or I don't know, you know, how to solve that problem. The point of education is to understand that you can go out there and you can find the answer. Because, as Jason said, you know, it took him a month to find those 3 contacts. Give me enough time, I'll find Obama's cell phone number, right? But you got to pay me, you know, but it'll take time. But everything is knowable. Literally everything is knowable in the world we live in today, right? There are no secrets. You just got to get to the right person to find out the secret. And, you know, when I started out, that wasn't true. It was very, very arcane, right? You had to physically go meet people. You had to go send letters. You had to, you know, it wasn't very easy. But you have the world at your fingertips. Look, I started the Film Society when I was in high school, because the only way I could see the films that I wanted to see was I had to get enough people together to be able to rent the film prints to show them, so that I could see the films that I'd read about. Well, you don't have to do that. You can go on the internet. You can see any goddamn thing you want to see, right? From crap to great stuff. It's all there, right? There's an outlet for all of it. But you got to go do that, right? Because every one of those films, right, if they're recent, every one of those films has credits on it. And every one of those credits is a contact for what you want to do. If it's something old, it's like, okay, the entire industry is built on creative theft, right? Which is, I go look at something and say, wow, that was a fantastic shot, or that was a fantastic scene, or God, the music worked so phenomenally, you know, the way they did that. And so I'm going to steal that idea, okay, that approach. I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to do something different, right? Because I can't just take it frame for frame or sound for sound. But I'm going to take that idea and do something with it. Because I learned from what those people did. It's like, so if you want to go make something, whatever it is, you want to go make a music video, go look at 100 music videos. You want to make a pilot for, you know, a reality television show? Go look at 100 reality television shows. Go look at scripted shows. You have to go do the homework, because no one is going to hand it to you.
Amen.
Right? You know, it's just not going to happen unless you have like a super trust fund. You know, if you're Megan Ellison, then, you know, then yeah, you can get it kind of handed to you. But that's not going to solve your problem, which is you still have to do something with the opportunity that you have in front of you, right? So I would say, you know, watch, read, listen, talk to everybody you can possibly do, right? You're at the point in your lives when all of this should be pouring in and pushing you forward. Other questions? I have to actually start class.
Jason,